Montezuma II, born Montezuma II, meaning, he who frowns like his lord father, in the melodic cadences of Nahuatl, entered the world around 1466 in the island metropolis of Tenochtitlan, the beating heart of the Mexica Empire that sprawled across the Valley of Mexico like a vast, turquoise-lacquered codex of stone and sacrifice. The son of Axayacatl, the eighth Tlatoani whose reign from 1469 to 1481 had swollen the Aztec domain through rivers of blood and tribute, young Montezuma was cradled in a cradle of privilege shadowed by the ceaseless drum of war and the acrid smoke of temple pyres where hearts still pulsed in offering to Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird god of sun and strife. His mother, the enigmatic Izalcoatzin or perhaps Xochicalcoatl, records waver like lake mist on the Texcoco, hailed from noble lineages that intertwined with the Texcocan kings, her blood a silken thread weaving Montezuma into the imperial tapestry, while his grandmother, Atatosli II, granddaughter of the legendary Montezuma I, infused his veins with the fire of ancestors who had forged Tenochtitlan from reed-choked shallows into a city of canals and causeways rivaling Venice's splendor. From his earliest breaths amid the Chinampa gardens where maize whispered to Chinampan farmers under Chinampa canoes, Montezuma was marked for greatness, his features said to mirror the god's own chisel, high cheekbones like carved obsidian, eyes dark as the underworld's rivers, a stature that would grow to tower over courtiers like a ceiba tree amid saplings. Yet infancy's idol shattered early, Axayacatl's death in 1481, felled by a fall from a temple stair during a ritual ballgame, thrust the boy into a court seething with uncle's ambitions, Tizoc ascending in 1481 only to fade in 1486 amid whispers of poison, paving the way for Huitzotl, Montezuma's fierce uncle whose 17-year reign would drench the empire in conquest's crimson, expanding its sway from the Pacific's foam-kissed shores to the Gulf's mangrove tangles. At 5, Montezuma was consigned to the Calmecac, the austere school for nobles where dawn's first light found him chanting verses from the Tonalamadl, the sacred calendar whose 260-day cycles divined fates in jaguar skins and eagle plumes, his days a rigorous forge of body and spirit under priestly rods that scarred palms for lapses in recitation of the Chilam Balam or the austere doctrines of Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror who peered into men's souls with unflinching judgment. There, amid the Calmecac's thatched halls echoing with the scratch of turkey quill pens on a mattlebark paper, he mastered astronomy's arc, tracking Venus's serpentine path as Quetzalcoatl's star, and the martial arts, his young arms straining obsidian-maced heads against padded Kuahali suits, dreaming of the eagle warrior's elite plumes that fluttered like omens over the eagle-topped skull rack of Tsimpantli. By adolescence, Montezuma's prowess bloomed, a hunter whose blowpipes felled birds mid-flight in Chapultepec's sacred groves, reserved for his solitary pursuits, with death decreed for poachers, a swimmer who cleaved Lake Texcoco's briny depths like a crocodile god, and an archer whose arrows whispered death to clay targets. His form a study in disciplined grace that belied the inner fire of a soul devoted to Huitzilopochtli's unquenchable thirst. Cleanliness was his ritual armor, bathing thrice daily in scented copal waters, changing garments, cotton tilmatli cloaks embroidered with quetzal feathers, with the sun's every shift, his person a temple unmarred by the world's grime, a habit that would later amuse and appall the Spaniards who beheld him as a living idol, perfumed and powdered like a deity descended. A Huitzotl's shadow loomed long over Montezuma's youth, the uncle's campaigns a thunderous drumbeat that the nephew marched to from his teens, first as a lowly Tequihua, captor of 4 enemy nobles in ritual duels whose blood would anoint the Teocalli's steps, escalating by 1490 to Tlacocoatl, the serpent eagle commander whose serpentine strategies routed foes in the Huastec wilds, where thorny acacias clawed at Mexica shields and jaguar men lurked in cenote shadows. In 1487, at 21, Montezuma tasted glory's salt in the dedication of Tenochtitlan's great temple, a ziggurat of 3-tiered splendor whose summit pierced the clouds like a cope petal, the Serpent Mountain. There, amid the incense haze and concorn wails, he led the flower war's harvest, captives from Tlaxcala and Huetzingo bound in maguey ropes, their hearts carved by obsidian knives to feed the sun's eternal chariot, 4,000 souls in 4 days, a spectacle that drowned the valley in screams and the canals in sacrificial gore, Montezuma's blade dripping as he whispered invocations to Tlaloc, the rain god whose tears would bless the maize. By the 1490s, as Aztecs net cast south to Tehuantepec's isthmus, conquering the Mixtec Codex keepers and Zapotec cloud cities whose codices of deer hide chronicled forgotten kings, Montezuma commanded the van, his banners of heron feathers snapping over Oaxacan hills where turkey vultures wheeled over mass graves, capturing chieftains like the Lord of Ayatlan whose rescue of stranded Pactica merchants in 1491 earned Montezuma's grudging respect, a rare mercy amid the empire's maw. Yet wars forged tempered not just steel but suspicion. Montezuma, ever the priest of Huitzilopochtli, high custodian of the Templo Mayor's inner sanctum, where turquoise mosaics gleamed under perpetual braziers, grew fatalistic under astrology's sway, omens from the Tonalpwali whispering of a returning bearded one from the east, Quetzalcoatl's exile reversed, a prophecy that would haunt his nights like a feathered serpent uncoiling in dream smoke. Aztec's death in 1502, struck by lightning atop the Teocalli during a storm god rite, his body bloated from drowned excess, thrust Montezuma, 36 and battle-scarred, onto the woven mat of rule. His election by the Council of Four, surviving nobles from the Triple Alliance of Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan, unanimous yet shadowed by whispers of sorcery, for Tizoc's poisoned end and Aztec's bolt seemed heaven's cull of the unworthy. Crowned on the stone of the Five Suns, a basalt slab etched with cosmic epochs, unearthed in 2006 from beneath the Metropolitan Cathedral's foundations, on perhaps July 15, 1503, the year to read, Montezuma's investiture unfurled in splendor, a coronation war to Nopalan, 400 miles south through Chiapas's jade jungles, where his warriors in eagle-feather panachas stormed the citadel, dragging 8,000 captives back in maguey litters for the Teocalli's red consecration, their hearts a banquet for the gods as jade labrets clattered in the priest's chants, the new Teletoni's brow anointed with pulque and blood in a rite that sealed his divine mantle. As ninth Huey Teletoni, Montezuma inherited an empire at zenith's fragile cusp. The Triple Alliance's sway encompassed 5 to 6 million souls from the deserts of Zacatecas to Guatemala's volcanic vales, tribute trains groaning with quetzal cloaks, cacao beans in jute sacks, and turquoise mosaics that could ransom kings, yet the veins pulsed with resentment. Subject city-states like Tlaxcala and Huetzingo chafing under the Pactica spies' unblinking eyes and the annual Zaquiayotl, flower wars that harvested men like maize for the altar's harvest. Montezuma, from his gilded palace, a sprawl of 300 rooms where fountains tinkled like jade chimes and aviaries housed resplendent macaws, he centralized the Calpulli councils, carving the realm into 38 provinces ruled by Calpixc tribute masters whose quipus tallied feather quotas and cotton bales, dispatching garrisons of 200 to 400 warriors to quash flickers of revolt, his edicts inscribed on immortal scrolls that fluttered like butterfly omens. Yet piety's yoke tightened. He widened the gulf between Pipilton nobles, cloaked in feather mantles and gold nose plugs, and Massahualtan commoners, barring the latter from palace service and inflating tribute to feed the Teocalli's insatiable maw, where 20,000 hearts beat in annual rhythm, a crimson tide that drowned the canals in viscera and bred whispers of tyranny in Texcoco's scriptoria. Natural furies tested his mandate, the 1505 to 1507 drought, heaven's wrath withholding Tlaloc's tears, withered Chinampas to dust, famine skeletal fingers claiming thousands as maize prices soared to emeralds worth, Montezuma's granaries, hoarded in Tenochtitlan's heart, dolefully open to avert cannibalism's specter, though rebellions flared in Totonacapan's Gulf coasts where saltpan workers hurled salt in tax collectors' faces. In 1506, he rebuilt the Chapultepec aqueduct, a 4-mile marvel of basalt and lime mortar siphoning Texcoco's waters to the Teocalli's ablutions, its arches striding like stone serpents, a hydraulic hymn to his ingenuity that quenched the city's 200,000 throats but conscripted 10,000 laborers whose backs bent under corvée whips. The Totocalli aviary followed, a menagerie of jaguars pacing gilded cages and quetzal iridescing in aviaries where Montezuma hunted with blowpipes from reed blinds, his solitary pursuits a meditation on empire's fragility, for even gods required sustenance from the wild's whim. A 1514 snowstorm, rare crystals veiling the volcanoes like funeral shrouds, blighted the harvests anew, frost-kissed maize stalks a portent that astrologers divined as Quetzalcoatl's stirrings, Montezuma's nights haunted by dream visions of a plumed serpent uncoiling from the eastern sea, his priests burning copal in frantic propitiation as the Tonalamatl's omens darkened like eclipse. Conquest's drumbeat defined Montezuma's martial soul, his reign a ledger of 73 campaigns, though many quelling sparks rather than kindling new fires, each a ritual dance of obsidian and feather where the flowery death claimed foes for the god's bouquet. In 1502, his coronation sally to Nopalan yielded not just captives but Chiapas's jade mines, whose green bounty would gild his throne room mosaics, while 1,504's storming of Aquiatlan in Oaxaca, Mixtec hill forts crumbling under Mexica rams, annexed the Tehuantepec Isthmus, its Zapotec codex scribes bent to Aztec script as tribute flowed in cacao and cotton. The fallen lord's heart's a victory feast atop the Teocalli. Xozalan fell in 1506, its Guerrero fastnesses yielding copper ingots for bell casting, the clangor a dirge for the slain whose pyramids he rededicated with 4,000 sacrifices, blood cascading like vermilion waterfalls to Sate Zype Totec's flayed renewal. Tototepec's 1507 siege, jungle drums summoning Tlaxcalan auxiliaries, swallowed the Yopi peoples into the empire's maw, their Nahuatl tongues twisted to imperial glosses as garrisons dotted the Pacific's foam, tribute trains of turtle shells and pearl divers snaking north to Tenochtitlan's markets where Pactica hagglers bartered under Quetzal awnings. Northern thrusts probed Zacatecas's deserts in 1510, Xixamec nomads rabbit-skin cloaks traded for obsidian blades, while eastern forays into Huastec mangroves in 1514 quelled Totonac salt lords whose revolts had salted the Gulf with defiance, Montezuma's fleets of war canoes, hollowed cypress trunks paddled by 200 oarsmen, churning the waves to foam as catapults hurled firepots into thatched hives. Yet not all banners flew triumphant, a 1515 rebuff by Tlaxcala and Huetzingo, bitter foes whose obsidian-edged Macuahuitl had bloodied Mexica lances, left scars on the empire's hide, the flower war's harvest meager as prisoners slipped cactus nets, omens that Montezuma drowned in pulque libations, his astrologers' stars aligning for greater glooms. Against the Tarascan Empire's lake-bound bastions, probes yielded only skirmishes, Purapeca copper axes glancing off Mexica shields, a stalemate that chafed the Tlatoani's divine impatience, for heaven demanded expansion's ceaseless tide. These wars, though fewer in scope than Ahuetzotl's deluges, consolidated the core, 38 Calpulli provinces recalibrated, tribute quotas etched in Cuacali ledgers, maize in 80,000-ton loads, cotton in 20,000 bales, ensuring the Teocalli's braziers never dimmed, though the Massahultans' backs bowed ever lower under the yoke. There murmurs a subterranean rumble that would one day erupt like Popocatépetl's fury. The serpent's coil tightened in 1517, when Grijalva's sails pierced the eastern horizon, strange keels from Cuba's tobacco shores, their iron beaks foaming the gulf like metal sharks, dispatching Nabuatl envoys to Tenochtitlan's causeways with tales of pale gods in feathered cloaks, their floating temples belching thundersticks that felled ceiba trees at a flash. Montezuma, ensconced in his aviary where Micah's mimicked omens, consulted the Tonalpwali's priests whose codices unfurled like dying butterflies, divining the prophecy's hour. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent exiled to Tlapalan by Tezcatlipoca's guile, returning from the dawn sea in the year 1 reed, his light skin and bearded chin the marks of divinity, not the bronze of Mexico warriors. Gifts dispatched, gold suns the span of shields, silver moons chased with turquoise, embroidered Tolmatli cloaks woven with Quetzal threads, bore the emperor's plea, return not yet, O Lord, thy city awaits in splendor, yet Grijalva's galleons vanished into the haze, leaving only echoes in the Pactica's whispers. Dawn of 1519 brought Cortés's armada, 11 naos slicing the Cozumel cerulean, 500 Spaniards in steel cuirasses clanking like iron locusts, their horses, deer like thunder beasts to Nahua eyes, thundering ashore at Veracruz's sands, where Totonac lords, chafing under Aztec yoke, knelt with jade offerings, their salt pans a bridge to rebellion. Montezuma's heart, ensnared by fatalism's web, wavered, envoys thrice dispatched to the Sempoalan coast, first with golden axes and feathered headdresses, second with the calendar stone's replica pulsing with cosmic glyphs, third with maguey fiber capes dyed cochineal crimson, each bearing the same velvet entreaty, met by Cortés's unyielding gaze, his cross a splinter in the emperor's dreams. The Malintzin, Cortés's Nahua interpreter, baptized Marina, whose tongue bridged worlds like a feathered bridge, whispered of the stranger's god hunger, their eyes devouring gold like Tlaloc's rains, yet Montezuma clung to the omen, his priests burning black copal in frantic rites as the Tonalamatl's days ticked inexorably toward the stranger's advance. By October, Cortés's column, 600 foot, 16 horse, 13 cannon, Tlaxcalan allies swelling to 1,000, marched the 260-mile Cordillera, Tlaxcala's Otomi warriors clashing in obsidian tempests at Cholula's pyramid foots, where 6,000 pilgrims lay slain in a preemptive slaughter, their blood a libation to uneasy alliances. Montezuma, from his throne of gold-inlaid jaguar pelts, decreed welcome, let them enter, for they are awaited, his voice a thunder muffled by fatalism's fog, as causeway bridges lowered like welcoming arms on November 8, 1519, the Teocalli's drums welcoming the pale procession amid canoes festooned with blossoms, the air thick with chocolates, cacao steam and copal's sacred bite. The Spaniards' entry into Tenochtitlan, a city of 200,000 souls afloat on Chinampas like a vast, emerald lily pad, its 3 causeways thronged with flower-garlanded multitudes, unfolded in tableaus of uneasy splendor, Montezuma, resplendent in his blue cotton Zayada Cutly cloak fringed with crabclaw gold, descended from his litter borne by 20 lords, his brow shaded by feathered parasols that rustled like Quetzalcoatl's wings, to clasp Cortés's hand in the causeway's throng, exchanging gifts whose gleam blinded the sun, for the conqueror, a helmet crested with quetzal plumes worth empires, for the Teletoni, glass beads from Venice's forges that shattered like brittle stars. Banquets followed in the palace of Axayacatl, where low tables groaned under tamales steamed in banana leaves, turkey mole spiced with chili's fire, and chocolate froth whipped to foam in clay molinillos, acrobats tumbling in feathered harnesses while dwarfs capered to shell trumpet wails, yet beneath the revelry lurked the serpent's coil, Cortés, housed in the palace with 400 men, his eyes devouring the Teocalli's gold-sheathed pyramid that soared 200 feet like a man-made mountain, its twin shrines to Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc wreathed in perpetual smoke. Days blurred into weeks of gilded captivity veiled as hospitality, Montezuma gifting Cortés a map of the empire's veins, tribute routes inked on deerskin, while the Spaniard probed with questions sharp as Toledo steel, his cross a thorn in the emperor's court where priests muttered of desecration. November 14 shattered the idol, news from the coast of Qualpopoca, the Aztec tribute master at Sempoala, slaying 7 Spaniards in a skirmish, a spark Montezuma fanned into flame by ordering the garrison's deaths, though chronicles debate if it was his decree or Cortés's trap. The conqueror, sensing the nooses weave, seized the Teletoni in his own halls, soldiers bursting from banquet shadows, arquebus leveled at courtiers' breasts, forcing Montezuma to proclaim Cortés's sovereignty over the Mexica, his voice a reed bending in the gale as he yielded the treasure vaults, gold bars and jade collars piled like harvest moons, the palace a gilded prison where the emperor dined behind tapestries, his freedom bartered for peace's fragile thread. Yet authority's erosion gnawed, Montezuma, puppet on Cortés's strings, quashed a Texcocan succession crisis by ordering Cacamatzin's arrest, his nephew's eyes gouged in ritual blindness, installing a pliable puppet, but the noble's eyes hardened, whispers of "the speaker is enthralled" slithering through the Calpulli like serpents in reeds. April 1520's full moon birth betrayal, Cortés, drawn coastward by Narvaez's 1,000-man rival fleet, left Pedro de Alvarado in charge, the hotheads massacre in the Great Temple, 500 nobles slain mid-Toxcatl festival, their feathered finery trampled in blood as Spaniards looted the goldsmith's quarter, igniting the powder keg. Mexico warriors surging from the canals with macuahuitl clubs that cleaved steel gorgets, the Teocalli a charnel of severed limbs and shattered helms. Cortés's return in May, absorbing Narvaez's host to swell his ranks to 1,300, quelled the uprising's first wave, cannon thundering from the palace roofs. Crossbows singing death across the causeways, but Montezuma's pleas for peace, uttered from his balcony amid the drum's frenzy, met a hail of stones from his own people, their cries of "woman! Coward!" a dirge for the enthralled god-king, a hurled roof tile shattering his brow in a spray of blood and bone. 3 days he lingered in agony's haze, fever racking his frame as physicians chanted over poultices of aloe and copal, expiring on June 29 or 30, 1520, his passing a fulcrum of fate, Aztec annals claim the Spaniards strangled him in secret, his body hurled from the parapets to be cremated at Capulco's pyre amid jeers. While Bernal Diaz del Castillo's conquistador Quil insists the mob's missiles felled their lord, his wounds festering under Spanish neglect. Regardless, his death unloosed the flood. Cuitlahuac, his brother and war chief, ascended in ritual haste, his warriors severing the causeway's bridges as Cortés's sortie on La Noche Triste, June 30's moonless midnight, dissolved into slaughter on the Black Lake's causeways, 800 Spaniards and 4,000 Tlaxcalans drowning in Tamim's clutches or skewered on obsidian edges, the Teocalli's treasures sinking into Texcoco's depths like drowned stars. Montezuma's body, borne in secret to Chapultepec's groves for clandestine cremation, lest his shade stir unrest, marked the empire's death knell. Smallpox, unwittingly sown by Narvaez's slaves, ravaged the Chinampas in July, claiming Cuitlahuac in 80 days and felling 25% of the Mexica, their pustuled corpses bloating the canals like fallen idols. Cortés's siege in May 1521, Tlaxcalan catapults hurling brigantines across the lake, Aztec canoes splintering under cannon's roar, culminated on August 13 with Tenochtitlan's fall, its pyramids toppled to rubble, 240,000 dead in the valley's charnel. Cuauhtémoc, Montezuma's nephew, yielding the mat in a canoe under white flag, his torture for hidden gold a grim epilogue to the Teletoni's dream. Montezuma's legacy fractures like struck obsidian, to the Nawa, a tragic pivot whose fatalism welcomed doom, his prophecies a self-fulfilling curse that chained the eagle to the serpent's thrall, to Spaniards, a haughty despot whose avarice lured the cross, Bernal Diaz dubbing him, the Great Montezuma, in grudging awe at his court splendor. Descendants wove into New Spain's fabric, his daughter Isabel Moctezuma, baptized and wed to Cortés's kinsman, birthed mestizo lines that claimed ducal titles in Madrid, Count of Moctezuma de Toltengo, a phantom nobility enduring to modern courts, while Pedro Moctezuma's progeny mingled with viceregal blood, their veins pulsing in Mexican presidents like Esteban Moctezuma Barragan, education minister under López Obrador. In Paim and Nawa lore, he endures as deity, his return vowed in Chiapas's 1721 rebellion where Tzeltal shamans invoked his shade against encomienda lashes, or the 1761 Yucatan uprising where Maya rebels etched his glyphs on ceiba bark for vindication's fire. Art's palette captures him eternal. Diego Duran's 16th-century codices portray his coronation in feather regalia, a bronze statue at Chapultepec's heights gazes over the valley he lost, while the Teocalli stone, basalt bas-relief of his enthronement, unearthed in 1790, now guards the National Museum's vaults like a petrified prophecy. The feathered headdress, quetzal plumes cascading 3 feet in emerald glory, gold beads glinting like captive suns, likely from his gifts to Charles V, graces Vienna's Völkerkunde, a plunder's trophy debated as Moctezuma's own. Literature and lyre exalt him. Lew Wallace's 1873 Fair God casts him as tragic sage, Neil Young's Cortés the Killer strums his lament in Electric Whale, while Marine's hymn echoes Chapultepec's 1847 storming, from the halls of Montezuma, a Yankee twist on his fall. In Mexico's soul, he embodies the rupture, indigenous pride's fractured mirror, a Teletoni whose welcome damned his world, his name a syllable in the national catechism where Malinche's betrayal and Cuauhtémoc's defiance flank his fatal shadow, a caution etched in codex and concrete alike. The mistakes that led to Montezuma II's downfall were a tragic tapestry of prophetic paralysis, imperial overreach, and a fatal misreading of the omens that transformed a warrior king's vigilance into a self-fulfilling doom, unraveling the Mexica's eagle empire in the space of moons. Foremost loomed his enslavement to the Quetzalcoatl myth, a fatalistic fixation on the feathered serpent's return from the east, divined in the Tonalamal's one-reed year and whispered by priests amid copal haze, that blinded him to Cortés's mortal menace, prompting lavish gifts of gold suns and jade serpents that only whetted Spanish avarice, his envoys' pleas for delay a velvet invitation rather than a steel barrier, allowing the conquistadors 600 to swell unchecked through Tlaxcalan alliances forged in Cholula's bloodbath. Compounding this, his policies of pious excess, escalating tribute quotas that gorged the Teocalli's altars with 20,000 annual hearts and widened the Pipilton-Masahualtin chasm, barring commoners from court while nobles flaunted quetzal mantles, bred a powder keg of provincial resentment, from Totonac salt lords' revolts to Tlaxcalan Otomi's unyielding hate, whose warriors would turn Cortés's catapults on Tenochtitlan's causeways, the empire's veins poisoned by the very exactions meant to exalt its gods. Militarily, his shift from aggressive expansion to ritual quelling, 73 campaigns yielding Chiapas jades but neglecting northern flanks against Tarascan copper axes, left garrisons stretched thin, 38 provinces a brittle web that snapped under smallpox's scythe and Narvaez's sails, his war chief Cuitlahuac's late ascension a desperate patch on a hemorrhaging host. Personally, his captivity's capitulation, yielding the treasure vaults and proclaiming Charles V's sovereignty from his gilded prison, his voice a reed in Cortés's gale, shattered his divine aura, the noble's eyes hardening as he ordered kin like Cacamatsin blinded, his balcony plea met with roof tiles that crowned him martyr in his own court scorn. At core, Montezuma mistook heaven's whisper for imperial warrant, fatalism's fog for strategic mist, turning the eagle's perch into a serpent's coil, his welcome a requiem for the world he ruled.